So anyhow, we're going to start this talk with a clip, because I thought it would be a good way to get everybody quiet. You're already quiet, but we already made the decision. So you are about to see a clip from the first Negro Harlem Arts Festival, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Who am I? Look upon me. Look upon my images. Listen to my sounds. These are the gates through which you must pass if you are to know me. What is my name? My name is Duke Ellington, Langston Hughes, Marpessa Dawn. What is my name? My name is Benin, Ethiopia, Monomatapa. My name is Africa. Gather round me. Gather round my writers, musicians, artists. For we have many moments of creativity and history to share. Moments in which we shall tell the world who I am.
Thank you. That was from the First World Festival of Negro Arts that was filmed by William Greaves in, actually Dakar, Senegal was where this festival happened and brought together creatives from all over the world who were part of the African diaspora. And one of the things that I'd wanted to ask, I mean, William Greaves meant so much to Harlem and to where we were and who we are as artists. I live in Harlem, and I ran a theater in Harlem for about 5 years, and a film center. And I mean, the importance of being able to lift up these artists and to see them as artists, and not just as Black artists, but as amazing artists, was really important. So one thing that, you know, when I look at that film and I wanted to talk about is, how did that process for your father, for your grandfather, what drove him, what made him really want to show these arts, lift up the arts, the artist? Where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, what was interesting is that when the USIA sent him over, they expected to see a newsreel, just a newsreel. But when he got there, he said, no, this is more than that. So they only gave him a little bit of footage, no sound person. He had a camera, an Arias, but he scrounged films from the Russian team, and he followed their lighting, and he used his driver to do sound, you know, and so you see the film is made really the narration and the footage marrying together. He didn't have sync sound, but it feels like it's in sync because the images match the narration so much. And I always thought the narration was like poetry, what he did here. So, and he just knew that this world meeting of African artists was something that had to be done better than a newsreel. So it became the official film of the festival.
Yeah, I always love that story about how he was sent with, you know, some just black and white film, and he came back with this beautiful work of art. And I remember asking him one of the times that I'd seen this, and I was much younger, and I asked him, how did you know to create it in this way, had to put this together in this way? Because to me, this film always feels like hip hop. I always say that. It feels like hip hop because hip hop music is like, it's brought from, the scratching, everything comes from something different, right? And it's sort of put together and then it's this wonderful, wonderful creation. And he told me that it was from that book, The National Value of Art. One of his gurus, my grandfather was very interested in Eastern philosophy and was someone named Sri Aurobindo. And in one of his texts, it's called, the text is called The National Value of Art, in which they talk about sort of poetry and music and the imagery and how that works on our being as a catharsis. And so I feel like that's one of my favorite, it is my favorite of our films because it really represents that and it does that kind of work. Yeah.
No, and I love watching it again and again, to be honest with you, because it is so. As I said, the narration is poetry, and how he matched it to the images. I just enjoy watching it even now.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about it is the quiet dignity of the film, too. I think as Black artists, Black filmmakers, we often feel that we have to fight to be looked at as respected, as respectful, and I think there was a certain point, and your dad and granddad was certainly part of that, where there was this feeling we're not going to worry about what other people are thinking. We are just going to do for ourselves. And to me, that is a perfect example of the doing for ourselves. And I think it's beautifully done.
Yeah, I clipped them here because I can't remember anything. But I wanted to share, it's just reminding me of that. One of the quotes of my grandfather's in which he's talking just about that subject, and he's asked in an interview, and this is probably around 1970 something or so, and he says that my films have strong elements of Black pride, which are a reaction to white racism, but they are ultimately pointed in the direction of the humanity and dignity of all people. I think that there has been entirely too much emphasis placed on Black or white identity. If we allow ourselves to be continually segmented in that way, we can't get to the essential humanity that joins us. Either a person is going to be a member of the human race, or we're going to be Black or white. Unless a sense of common humanity and dignity become dominant, we are in for a whole lot of trouble in the 21st century. So, alas. He wasn't wrong.
He was not wrong about the 21st century.
Yeah.
So let's step back in time a little bit to Ralph Bunche and American Odyssey. And one of the things that I love about the clip that we're about to see is we see how William Greaves is still an artist, but the artist is political in the presentation of the subject in the discussion while still elevating the art. So can we show the American Odyssey clip, please?
Rhodes was a very curious place. There was nothing to do in Rhodes in winter, nothing. The only recreation was billiards and ping pong, both of which Bunche was very good at.
Bunche writes,
"There's a cat and mouse game going on here between each of them and me. They would be happy if I would terminate the negotiations and just relieve them of any responsibility. But I'm not going to take that rap."
All of a sudden, one morning, somebody came, a messenger from Bunche, saying he would like to meet all the members of the Israeli delegation in his bedroom. We were a little startled, but okay, we went. And in the meantime, he sent another messenger to the Egyptian delegation, telling them that he would like to see them in his bedroom. In the bedroom, there was a large chest of drawers. Ralph had had 2 sets of plates made, marked Rhodes Armistice Talks, 1949. He opened the drawer and said, "Now look at these lovely plates which I prepared especially for you. When you sign the agreement, each of you is going to get one of these plates as a souvenir of these negotiations. But if you don't reach agreement, I personally will break these plates over your heads. Of course, everybody burst out laughing, and that was the end of the impasse. This was a typical Ralph Bunche maneuver.
1 p.m. Wednesday, February 23rd. The Egyptians return from Cairo with the full agreement of their government. Bunche schedules a simple signing ceremony for 10:30 a.m. the following day. Within 1 year, Lebanon, Transjordan, and Syria will each sign a similar agreement with Israel, drafted by Ralph Bunche.
Yeah. Wow.
That was pretty amazing. And one thing I'd like to talk about is, I know that film was made in 2001. What do you think it was that made that the time to bring this footage to life? And how did Mr. Greaves even get there to do this, to film this at the time?
Do you know about that?
I mean, I don't know. I know mostly this about this film, that this was something that was sort of like an odyssey in the making of it. It's called the Ralph Bunche American Odyssey, but it was in that it was many years in the making of this, and that I remember it was so long, and then now we have this finished film, and there's also like 12 different modules still, because there's just so much to say about Ralph Bunche. And many people, I'm curious if anybody here has heard the name before of Ralph Bunche. Not very many, yeah. And that's the thing, but this was a man of color who was operating in the highest level at the United Nations, creating peace agreements around the world in 1948.
He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1950.
For creating the first peace agreement between Israel and the Arab nations. So this was like a black man that was participating, doing this in these rooms where his family could not sit at the counters in Washington, D.C. So he's a fascinating character, and the more that I've learned about him, now I know why it was such an obsession when Grandpa was making it. Yeah, we're very excited about this because we're wanting to create now if you haven't seen this documentary, please watch it and see it. And we're going to be making a narrative film. We're hoping to make a narrative film about Ralph Bunche, because it's one of those stories it is one of those stories where my grandfather is really, this is a historic person that needs to be remembered, that we need to understand. His name is sort of on buildings throughout the U.S. His name is on buildings, his name is on streets, but people don't know who he is. So yeah.
Yeah, what I like about the whole Ralph Bunche story is that it was one of pure excellence coming up. There's a cream rising to the top in whatever vessel it's held, and you see his negotiating, his skills, and being able to come to the point where you say, I'll break these plates over your head. How different that kind of negotiator is than who we have working on it today. You know, it's just it's an entirely different level of understanding and working and goals. He knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to get these people together. He wanted a peace plan, and they worked on it. That's what they worked on. There was nothing. You said on where they were, there was no other distractions, nothing else to do except work on this plan. And I just think it's just a wonderful contrast with the negotiations that are happening today, and watching Ralph Bunche in action, I think will make people say, gee whiz, why don't we have these kinds of people doing this work now, rather than what we have now. I'm sorry.
And how did your father get there?
How did
he get there? How did he end up there at this moment?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, how did he get to?
So you mean being present at that? No, I don't know that he filmed that. Did he film that?
No, it's all archival footage. It's all archival footage, yes, right.
Yeah.
And so the next film that we have to take a quick look at, some of you may know Symbiocytotoxiplasm. Say it a couple of times. And we'll look at a quick clip from that.
And then what happens is that the director and the actors undertake to improvise something better than that which has been written, in the screen test. This sort of palace revolt, which is taking place, is not dissimilar to the sort of revolution that's taking place, let's say, in America today, in terms of the fact that, in a sense, I represent the establishment, and I've been trying to get you to do certain things which you've become, in a sense, disenchanted with, Now, your problem is to come up with creative suggestions which will make this into a better production than we now have.
I don't understand that at all.
Well, it doesn't matter whether or not you understand it. The important thing is that we surface from this production experience with something that is entirely exciting and creative as a result of our collective efforts, as a result of Marsha's efforts, as a result of Audrey, Cy Motel, you, Jonathan, you, Bob, Roland Mitchell, Nikki, Frank Baker, Barbara Linden. It's important that as a result of the totality of all of these efforts, we arrive at a creative piece of cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Can I go first? Do you want to go first or shall I?
Well, for those of you who don't know, you just got your first glimpse of William Greaves as the director, playing the director in a very complicated game of cat and mouse, making a film, and the making of making a film, and the making of making a film. But if you haven't seen it, it's mind-blowing, it's creative, it's intelligent, it's really just such a great piece of cinema. It's the first film of William Greaves that I ever saw, and I still find it one of the best ones. But can you talk a little bit about how he came up with this and how it was made?
There was a great believer in what was the Heisenberg theory of uncertainty, that when you put the camera on something, it automatically changes what you're looking at. And he loved the idea of understanding chaos. And as a matter of fact, the beginning of Symbio, somebody asked him, what's the film about? He said, we don't know. We don't know. It's called Over the Cliff. And in the editing room, I realized that when he said it's over the cliff, you do the shooting, and then, in fact, you go off the cliff and then edit like crazy to make the thing start to fly, because we were looking at a wall of footage in the editing room, just literally a solid wall of footage. You say, where are we now, David? We're down there. And so it was really a process. It was an adventure with a lot of stops talking about Eastern philosophy in the editing room. I mean, this is where he really spoke about Sri Aurobindo. He would stop the editing machine and then, opine philosophically went right over my head. I didn't. And it wasn't until I read his the notes and getting ready to work on Once Upon a Time in Harlem, that I read his notes, were extensive in the books by Sri Aurobindo and other Eastern philosophers. that I said, oh, this is where that came from. That's when I, 50 years later, I learned where all that, where that thinking came from. So it was editing Symbio was an experience. We would look at, because it was very long, obviously, and then cut out something. He said, did you miss it? Did you miss it? No, I don't miss it. So figuring out if something was missed or not. And it was interesting in that the things that were, as you cut it, I guess it happens with every film, every cinema verite film, as you cut it out, things that were very important at one point fall by the wayside because they just don't match up with this other thing. It's just not important as this other piece. So Symbio was that kind of editing process, and it was arduous but also fun. We had a lot of fun editing that. Yeah.
Were you expecting to come out with what you came out with going into the editing processes?
Symbio?
Emma has shared. Yeah, with Symbio.
Oh, I don't want to claim that because he put it together. I was the trusted assistant doing what I had to do.
But it's important to also note that you were the trusted assistant, but you were the editor and important. Everyone was playing their part in that, which is this is my favorite scene in the film because he is and it's sort of his way. This is the most important part of the film to me, and it's what we used in order to get to Once Upon a Time in Harlem, because it is this. It comes at a place, for those of you that have not seen the film, it comes at a place of it comes right after, this scene comes right after a huge conflict that happens within the filmmaking team. It's a huge conflict that happens, and they're sitting outside, and he's not playing a director. He's actually the director. I mean, he's sometimes people think that he was joking, but he wasn't, or that he was, but in any event, and he says when he invites people to kind of show up, what are we going to do? You're here, you're here, you're here. How or what are we going to create? Because what's important, you don't have to understand what we're doing. You just have to know that what's important is that we arrive. We arise from this with something that we can use. That's something that's useful that comes from these moments of conflict. And the other thing that I clipped that I wanted to share with you was a piece of writing from my grandfather that's in one of the footnotes of the books that my dad was mentioning. It's in this book called The Basis of Yoga by Sri Aurobindo. These were these texts that I'm sharing them with you because they were his Bible, for lack of a better, these were his guide for every film that he's ever made. We see notes in them, in these about every film, about Ali the Fighter, about Symbio, about Ralph Bunche, all of them. And in this one, he writes this, which is, if there is no conflict or struggle, there's no growth or evolution. That God created the dynamic of conflict, and it's only out of this cosmic play can anything be created or manifested or condensed. The play is the thing, right? So the conflict is the thing that and this Symbio is full of conflict. Our film is full of conflict. The making of our film is full of conflict with the grandparents, your dad's father and my grandmother dying, and us needing to, finish it, and, not having money, and all of those things, yeah.
And if you've seen Symbio with the rap session with the crew, that said that because he did not know about that footage of crew, but he said that his big regret was that there wasn't a camera on him when he was watching the footage for the first time. He said, gee, I wish I had a camera there. If only I knew. Because I don't know what his reaction was, but apparently it was something. He was just surprised and delighted, and as you can see, it's an integral part of the film. And the production manager, Bob Rosen, said to him in an elevator when he gave him the footage that, Bill, you're going to need this for this film. and he did.
Away the scene. You're not supposed to give it away.
I'm not supposed to give it away. Wow.
If you haven't seen it,
I think it's still worth
it's
seeing.
okay. It still works. Okay.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about before we get to the Once Upon a Time in Harlem clip is just what do you think Harlem meant to your father and your mother? There is, at least, in my life in Harlem, a sort of reverence around supporting Black arts that were Negro arts, that were Afro-American arts, however you want to categorize it. And one of the things that I see running as a thread through every William Greaves film I've seen is a quiet celebration of that, and Harlem was definitely the center of it. And can you tell me a little bit about how he felt about Harlem?
My father loved Harlem. He would speak of the folks who were parading down Lenox Avenue, strolling down Lenox Avenue. He spoke about the YMCA and the people he met there, and of course the library. That was
all still there.
all still there, and no. So Harlem was really, well, not only his home, but his wellspring. That's where he met all the people in. Not he didn't met them, but the people in Once Upon a Time were like his inspiration, and he just didn't want those people, those personages, lost in time. How important they were, and he said the world has to meet these people, and they can't be lost in time. So that's why he saved them in this footage. Mm-hmm. Oh, and also Symbio had an effect on how we did Once Upon a Time, in that it gave us editors. And Damar and Lynn True and myself gave us the freedom to use split screens extensively to see him on camera. It's okay if you see a slate on camera, it's quite all right, because they did it in Symbio, so we can do it here. So Symbio had certainly had an effect on what it is that we did with this film.
And in putting the party together for Once Upon a Time in Harlem, what was the expectation? I mean, I'm still amazed he got that many folks together in a room at the same time. How did that happen? How was it that all of them decided that they were going to come together to do this?
Well, the center was, of course, the librarians. From David Levering Lewis's book on Harlem Renaissance. If you read it, even in the introduction, everyone in his introduction, it feels like, is in this film. All the various characters, and so how do I put it? In this, bringing them all together was a product of. The librarians having a network of people, so that once he spoke with Gene Hudson, who was our advisor, Gene Hudson knew Regina Andrews, and Regina Andrews knew everybody else that was around, and they knew. Oh, I know what such and such is. So and so is. One person, Helene Martin, apparently couldn't come. So this was a product of the librarians being the center back then in 1926, and also they were instrumental at the party itself in helping to move the participants around, bring in this person, let that person go. It was so they were there, standing behind the couch, but coordinating the action as it went along with my father.
Yeah, they definitely seem to play a large role. And for any of you who've been to New York, if you've ever been to the Schomburg Center, that is the 135th Street Library that's referenced in the film. It's been expanded and made into a cultural center now and has one of the greatest collections of footage of Black life, Black news, Black archives in the entire country. I remember going there when I was in college to do work there. And also I remember through there getting in touch with Romare Bearden, who I wrote my thesis on, and they just gave me his number and said, call him up, he'll be happy to hear from you. And I met him just probably about 6 months before he passed away, but it was, one of the honors of my life. And there are so many people in this, the network they had, the collection that they continue to have, the way they, banded together is still something that I feel plays through Black arts in general in the U.S. and is even more so needed now.
Yeah, I love the, I'm sorry, good.
No, I love that you worked with that you got to meet Romare Bearden. That's so wonderful. Bessie Bearden's boy. That's a line.
That's a line in the film.
That's a line in the film. Romare Bearden says in the film that art. One of my many favorite lines in the film is he says in the film that art comes out of a community. It comes out of audaciousness. And that alone, I just feel, is a seminar of its own. But this lesson of community, of being together. One thing that we loved about in all the footage, what emerges is you notice how the artists were working together. And, they all knew, as Anne always says, they always know what the other one is doing. So, you would find that the sculptor was sitting for the painter, and the painter was reading the poetry for the poet, and the poet was doing whatever. And so everyone kind of knew each other. And there was this nucleus, which was the Schomburg Center, which was the library, the 135th Street Library. And these librarians that were creating space for people to gather together, people like also Alila Walker, who we discover in the film, and Mary Louise Patterson was also the kind of person that was bringing people together, putting people in the space for community to see what gets created, what can be created from this. So such a powerful example. I think that's what I love about our film, is that it is this powerful sort of recipe for a renaissance, for what does that look like? What does an awakening look like? And what are the things that are needed? These are the things that are needed: community, audaciousness, collaboration. Co-creation, yeah.
And one of the things that you do well in the film, and I particularly noticed, is that you make sure that the women take the spot that they deserve. It is a heavily male group, and not only do you uplift, in a sense, through the film, the women who are there and acknowledge their contribution, but you do an incredibly good job of bringing in some of the women who aren't there.
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about your decision to do that and how you decided to, work in that female presence and that female contribution?
Sure. Well, when when Ann and I were in the editing room working on the film, I remember her saying, we got to get some women up in here, because it's a lot, as you say, a lot of male folks being extolled. So Zora Neale Hurston.
Yes,
we had to put in Zora Neale Hurston. As soon as Bruce Nugent mentions Zora Neale Hurston, okay, that's an entryway into Zora Neale. So I looked through her poetry and didn't find anything that really worked. And then I looked through her essays, and then when I came to the end of the one, I Am Colored Me,
which Liani reads, correct?
That's right, with Liani reads. And the last line of it is, I'm not going to worry about the world. You know, I'm too busy sharpening my oyster knife. And I remember my mother, you used to speak about sharpening her oyster knife. And I said, oh, that's the section that's going to go in. You know? So that's how that got in. And then also when Regina Andrews speaks of Essie Robeson and how important she was. I remember my aunt saying, well, you know, it was Essie who did such and such and so and so. Oh, well, you know, then that had to be in there, you know, that the importance of the teamwork between Paul Robeson and Essie. So it was, so yes, it was a conscious effort to get as much female influence, how important that was, as well as the librarians. The librarians were critical back in '26, and they were critical in '72, and in terms of bringing people into the discussion and moving other folks out, and they were coordinating. I realized, along with my father, how the thing would be going, what subjects they would be covering. So the librarians played a very important part, not only then but in the making of the film itself.
I think one of the things, as you're talking about this, you can see how much when we say that this is a co-creation and a collaborative project. I mean, even my grandmother, who's not my grandmother Louise, but he's talking about my other grandmother who would say the thing about the oyster knife, and how you've inserted that into this film. There's so many pieces like that of ourselves that are and people that have influenced this this final creation, and yeah, so it's wonderful. It's very exciting.
All right, let's take a look at that last clip, which is from Once Upon a Time in Harlem.
We took 3 minutes? Oh, 1 minute.
I'm going to talk about Zora. I'm a plastic artist.
She did all these books when nobody else was doing anything. Please, somebody speak about Zora Neale Hurston. All right.
Yeah. I'm a plastic artist, and Augusta was one of my goddesses also. But Zora Neale Hurston was the first person in the writing field who had been to Africa, who came back bringing things that were tangible, that I could feel from Africa, like a monkey skin, a tanned monkey skin, or a piece of Gabon sculpture. And Zora had a little apartment on 66th Street, and it was a beautiful thing to go down to Zora's place and sort of expound your literary ideas. You know, they can be very important to you when they're yours. They're very important. And everything that was important to anybody else was important to Zora.
I love that line.
And so we're getting kind of close to wrapping up, but one of the things that I wanted to ask the two of you about as filmmakers is, this is a heavy subject. This is a lot of great people who the portrayal of them was in your hands. Can you tell me what it felt like to have that and what you really wanted audiences to take away when they saw the film that you made?
Gee whiz, to take away from it, just to understand how important these people were, and to see them and to hear them in their 80s and 90s, being absolutely in tune with what was happening back then, and also at the time that they were speaking. It was, I mean, as I say, he wanted to preserve them, and you can see why he would want to keep these people in the forefront, so that when people look at African American history, they'll see a side of it that is not, if you will, in the popular understanding of the Black history. And I think that Europeans and a lot of Americans as well are seeing, would see sort of the wellspring of intellect and creativity that had gathered in Harlem, and how it had just through their collaborating had come together and exploded into this what we call the Harlem Renaissance. And I don't know how we would bring those kinds of folks together again if we have that people who we can say, yes, this is a group that made an era. So that makes this a very rare kind of experience.
Everybody I ever heard of was in that room. I'm still not sure how he did it. But one of the things also that I noticed, not only was it all these great thinkers, but going back to the women, they really seemed to decide who spoke and also who had to shut up when they wanted them to shut up.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. Bruce Nugent would
Oh,
go
yeah.
on, as you can see, he would go on, and in some of the outtakes.
He got his rights read to him several times.
Excuse me?
He got his rights read to him several
Yes, that's right, yeah. And if you see, like in the outtakes, Gene Hudson is so
Calming him down.
Calm down. So no, they were critical, I think, to keeping the thing on track.
Absolutely.
To keeping on track and playing the role that Regina would have played.
Yeah.
So it was just wonderful to have them work and see what they were doing.
I think it's really, it's a tremendous honor also for us to be able to, not just on behalf of my grandfather, but mostly, but also on behalf of the individuals in the film. You had the sense throughout this entire process that they wanted to have their voices heard, that they wanted to be heard, and that they had something to offer. And so this film is, in terms of, I'll speak for me, what I'm hoping that audience come away with is something that they can use. Something that was useful to them so that they can see the, artistic creative process, not just of my grandfather's as he's reflecting on his own, this moment of, it's this historical document that he's doing, but it's inquiry. He's trying to understand himself as he's filming them as an artist. And so my hope is that people will get that. I think that my grandfather wanted this work to exist so that you can see it, so people can see it and that they can use it and they can create and they can be conscious of the fact that they are that we're infinitely creative and that we are constantly, even in this moment, creating. And what are we going to leave here with? What are we creating? So that's what I'm hoping, that when people see it, they will think of that and they will hold it and see what's going to happen next. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think of this film as a gift. It's a gift to all of us. It's a gift to Black people. It's a gift to artists.
Absolutely.
It's a gift to history. And so I'm so excited that you've brought this to the screen so beautifully. And I know one of the things, which is kind of corny, but I'm going to say it anyhow, people would sometimes, when we would show a documentary at Maisels, ask, well, is this really about history or is it art? And I think William Greaves is the perfect example. It's both, which I said, it's not history, it's not art, it's heart. That's what you get from this film. And I want to thank you both for making it and for being here to talk to us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.